is the minimum wage negotiation. As we all know, President Muhammadu Buhari signed the minimum wage bill into law in April 2019, but its implementation was stalled over the issue of relativity and consequential adjustments of salaries for various categories of workers. The good news now, however, is that the federal government and the Labour finally reached an agreement yesterday on percentage increase on the adjustment of workers' salary. Joining us to discuss this topic, we have with us the General Secretary of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Emmanuel Ubgoaja. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Emmanuel, so tell us how this is going to be implemented. We know that the negotiations the Labour made was directly with the federal government. So on the state level, how do you ensure that the state governors are following through with these negotiations as well?
Normally what happens is people look up to the federal government to get a bearing as to what they will do in the states. And once the table is settled like we did yesterday with the federal government with regards to federal workers, the state governments will then go ahead to get their heads of service in their various states to have a look at what the federal government has done, then invite the labor leadership at the state level to have a dialogue as to how this can apply to their states, depending on the capacity of each state. Normally varies. You have, if I should grade them myself, I would say you have the grade A states in terms of revenue, because money is everything. Ability to pay determines the level, the quantum of what you get. So you have states like Lagos, Rivers, Akwa Ibom, Kano, where we expect people, Delta, states that in the past have shown capacity to come very close to what the federal government would have placed for its own workers. Then you have the, sorry also for my, the crybabies that will tell you we are going bust, we are going bankrupt, and they would then live with the law and apply the quantum they can. But our own attitude is to try to ensure that the global standard of collective bargaining is applied in reaching any decision. That's what's key for us. If you say you don't have money, we want the books open. And then the workers who know the facts will be able to authenticate what the state of your affairs happens to be. Then you can reach an understanding with them.
So I learned that the United Labour Congress, ULC, they pulled out of these negotiations. And so yes, the national strike was avoided, but Nigerians, the average worker whose rights you are fighting for, we don't know the terms of these negotiations. We don't know what this actually means and when implementation starts. So can you shed more light on some of the items that were negotiated and the results from that?
Well, the simple, and I'm glad you guys run a great show that people watch, and that will help educate. There's so much ignorance out there with regards to what the minimum wage is. Nationally, there is a national minimum wage. It means the wage below which no Nigerian worker should be paid, whether it's the cleaner in your domestic employ or the house help, because we still have domestic servants association or union across the globe. And in Nigeria, once you employ somebody, the least you pay that worker is 30,000 a month. Then we moved on to what caused the issue was how the federal government will apply the new level to its own workers employed by the federal government. And in the federal government, you have what they call levels 1 to 17. The least worker on level 1, step 1, was to get 30,000. Initially, it was 18,000. So the moment you make it 30,000, there is no way the level 2 person will still be where he was. The level 3 won't be where he was. So we needed to have a consequential grading across. But the difference between 18 and 30 in percentage for those that passed maths. I'm not good in mathematics. Some will tell you it's between 40 and 57%. If you were to do that across for every level, if you were to apply 57 or 47% to a grade 17 person, the federal government might go bust. That was what they put across. And we weren't going to turn a blind eye to the state of the economy. So clearly, even the fundamental background for minimum wage fixing is to lift the poor out of the poverty line. It's not to make the rich richer. It's basically to lift the poor. But there is also a global understanding that you don't destroy the structural level. People want to get promoted. People want to rise. So if you tamper with the base, it has to move up. So clearly the federal government has settled the matter with its own workers. The rest of the economy will have to balance theirs, including the private sector. Why the private sector has been a bit calm is over the years, the private sector has developed a more robust and solid negotiating platform. So before the minimum wage became 30,000 for the organized private sector, the least paid worker there through collective bargaining was already getting close to 30,000. They had moved away from 18,000. That was why there wasn't much noise coming from their own angle. But the government had stuck to the base of 18,000, and that is why the burden looks heavy on them. If in the past 9 years that the minimum wage was last tampered with, that they had discussions, had negotiations to move gradually every 2 years, every 3 years, we wouldn't be in what state we find ourselves. So moving forward is to encourage the states, to encourage the federal government that you need not wait for 9 years to discuss wage review. You need not wait for 9 years to see what you will do. As the inflationary rate, as the cost of living, as the economy shows its different aspects, you call in your workforce and have a dialogue with them, how to improve on their well-being. More so when you had issues of fuel price hike, you had issues of electricity tariff going up, you're having stories about VAT going up by 50%. These are things that impact on the wage earner, who you don't expect to be running any business outside the normal work hours. So you need to factor how he lives within this climate.
Yeah, Mr. Emmanuel, I'm exceptionally glad that you're on today's program because, as you said, you've used this opportunity to educate our viewers about how these negotiations affects them. But the questions bothering on the minds of everyday Nigerians is, with our rising debt ceiling, with the inability of state governors already to even pay salaries at the barest minimum, which was 18,000, how realistic and how implementable is this negotiation moving forward?
Especially, just to add to that, especially after the fact that the budget for 2020 has already been provided, so if we're has been presented, so if we're having these negotiations now, just what you're saying, how does that really work?
For the federal government, for instance, right from the 2019 budget cycle, they had already made some provision, anticipatory provision for increase both with the minimum wage and the consequential adjustment. They had put in something. The challenge was whether what they put was going to be enough at the end of the negotiations. So that's what they have to grapple with. And that was what impacted on the length of time we had to go, because they were determined to keep themselves within what they had provided for. They felt that was what they had. For the rest of the states, because they have the machinery to talk loud, they keep because we need to interrogate this stuff. When people tell you they don't have money, they don't reflect it. A governor that does private jet hiring twice a week and then tells you he doesn't have money to pay civil servants. What is governance about? It's about delivering service. Who delivers this service? The worker. So why won't you pay the man who delivers the service? You have money to hire private jet for leg room. You don't want the discomfort of being in a commercial flight. But you won't pay for the person who provides the service. So it's about getting our priorities right. It's about being real. Because the poor worker doesn't have the capacity to come on air every time to say, hey, I'm dying. And the big man who runs has the ability to keep running into the media to say, we don't have money, we don't have money. You ask him, what would the governor be doing in Abuja thrice a week? They're never in their states. So people need to question this. How many times do you go to the state and find the chief executive of the state at home doing work? How many times, which local government chairman lives in the local government? Everybody operates from the state capital and then tells you he's a councillor in a local government. He tells you he's a councillor. We need to interrogate this. We need to make our country work for us.
Most definitely. And perhaps the Labour Union would give you a segmented time on this program to keep on talking to our viewers and keep on building structures that would ensure that these state governors, local government chairman, and even the federal government is held accountable to its promises. Thank you so much for coming on today's program. That's all we have for you. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Weekend Show NG on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can watch extended clips from this episode on our website, www.weekendshowng.com. Helping us to sign out, we have two awesome artists, but I must plug in the Osasu Show Symposium is coming up this Wednesday, October 23rd at NAF Conference Center here in Abuja from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. The theme of the event is the 21st century woman and her role in national development. It's open to both men and women. So come and dialogue with key stakeholders on how to move the agenda of women forward and to ensure that we have all Nigerians working towards our national development. That's it. We'll see you next week. Take it away.
Looked past my sin, my guilt, my shame, and poured your love. You look beyond me, oh. You look beyond me, oh. You look past my sin, my guilt, my shame. You poured your love, oh. You look beyond me, oh God. You look beyond me, oh. You look past my sin, my guilt, my shame, and poured your love. You look beyond me, oh.